Hi, I'm Elaine Flint and I'm the Voscur rep to the Prosperous and Ambitious board, and I'm reporting on our last meeting which took place on the 12th of May in the sumptuous surroundings of Merchants Hall, which was fairly extraordinary, with chandeliers half the size of the room we're currently recording in, but it's a different world. Really, if I start with overall impressions, there is an impression, I think, that a lot of the more commercial partners seem to be dropping off in attendance from this board, and I think that's possibly because actually there appear to be very little decisions, if any decisions, actually being made, and instead it seems to be a forum for other reports to be brought forward to be noted, which doesn't really mean that there's any real decision making, and I can understand how people then drop away in their enthusiasm for the board. Having said that, at this meeting on the 12th of May, Barbara Jank was there, who was sitting in for Councillor Rogers, who I think is the councillor who's going to be in attendance. And actually that was the first time we have had any councillors in attendance at these board meetings. Interestingly, one of the things she queried very early on in the proceedings was actually the membership, because we still have some vacancies, and she asked the question about what the basis of membership was, at which point everybody looked at each other and said, well, it's self-selecting, and she wasn't particularly impressed by that, I don't believe. Then talking about the reports that actually came to the meeting, the Green Momentum Group just very briefly reported to say that the Peak Oil Task Force report is actually coming out shortly, and to look out for that. There's also an announcement happening at the end of June on the regional spatial strategy, which might affect the number of housing numbers. That's the housing report. A third report, which is currently out for consultation on the City Council website, is the Destination Bristol report, which is about Bristol's place strategy, about its uniqueness in the southwest. And then we also had an update on the Recession Mitigation Fund, which a number of organisations had bid for, and we saw the list of the successful bidders, with which there were, I think, 8 successful bidders. In fact, only 2 came from the third sector. The vast majority of the successful bids were from statutory or quasi-statutory organisations. I don't know how many bids there actually were. That wasn't reported, but I am aware that there were a large number of third sector bids, so little concern, I think, about that process and what it might mean for further funds and bids that actually are dealt with through this type of process. There also was a brief update on the ERDF Urban Enterprise bidding, which is still somewhere in the distance. The Prosperous and Ambitious board is being asked for volunteers to sit on the commissioning teams. There still appears to be enormous confusion about how organisations bid if they don't have any match to contribute, which could very, very much sway the types of bids that are actually successful, and is again a real concern for the third sector. The final report was actually again a request for somebody, a volunteer, to sit on the Southwest Advisory Group for this to do with Severn tidal power. There wasn't actually a volunteer. It's quite a large ask, because that's somebody to attend that group on behalf of the whole strategic partnership. So nobody was identified to take that forward, and there was a sort of passionate call from the guy from the Port of Bristol Authority about the importance of this feasibility and consultation process to the future of the Port of Bristol, with its very substantial number of local jobs, 7,500, and the fact that it's sort of the largest port that's nearest to the centre of England in terms of sort of lorry transport. So there was a very heartfelt plea there from him. But as you can see, no decisions, and really very much a reporting process. We skimmed very briefly over the LAA CAA reports. Just noted and said that they were there for future prioritisation, so that again no decisions made on that, and that I think is probably about it. The next meeting of the Prosperous Ambitious Board is on the 17th of June, to be held at the BBC.